1866 in Pulaski, Tennessee, a group of young Confederate veterans, notably Nathan Bedford Forrest, formed a social club describing themselves as an institution of chivalry, humanity, mercy, and patriotism. This club was KKK, short for Ku Klux Klan, derived from the Greek word kiklos, which means circle. Klan was added for the sake of alliteration.
Klansmen were known to intimidate black voters as they developed into an anti-black and anti-radical organization. They would torch homes of black people, attack them, and even ambush both black and white radical leaders. Within the Klan, different positions had unique Klan terminologies starting with KL, created by William Joseph Simmons, leader of the Second Klan. For example, Clubby, Treasurer, Clavern, Local Organization, and Imperial Kleagle, Recruiter. 1871 marked the beginning of the end for the first KKK as Congress passed an act that suppressed the Klan. However, it was subsequently declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. By then, the KKK had already faded away.
In 1915, the Klan had its first revival organized at Atlanta, Georgia. This revival was inspired by the movie Birth of a Nation. They peaked in the 20s with memberships exceeding 4 million and mainly profited from the sale of its memberships. The revival died down during the 30s due to a long list of scandals. In the 60s, Klan had a resurgence in some southern states. There were instances of bombings, whippings, shootings, and whatnot carried out in secret against black people. The revival, however, persists. During the Reconstruction era, public violence was used as a method to intimidate black people and to create social hierarchy that places white above all other races. Within 18 months, even though 197 murder cases were reported, armed guerrilla warfare had killed thousands of Negroes. By 1871, the Ku Klux Klan Act was signed by the president. It was an act that uses military force to suppress the KKK. Even though the Klan refused to voluntarily dissolve after the act was introduced, as more blacks served on juries in federal court, hundreds of Klan members were fined or imprisoned as a result. As for the Second Klan, it focused on the anti-Catholic and anti-Jewish movement. At its peak, the KKK went from 4 million to 5 million members and had a substantial amount of political power in various states.
However, when a scandal by one of the Klan leaders, namely D.C. Stevenson, broke out, a series of other scandals by other Klan members were exposed, leading to the downfall of a second KKK.
And lastly, the third Klan development, which has no formal connection to the Second Klan. During the 60s, Klan groups in Birmingham, Alabama started to resist social change and blacks' efforts to improve their lives by bombing their houses and ambushing them. However, under the COINTELPRO, an infiltration plan, the FBI already had paid informants in the Klan. The government had even revived the Enforcement Act and the Klan Act from the Reconstruction days. These laws were used as a basis for a few Supreme Court cases. During the 70s, they began to shift their attention to court-ordered busing, affirmative actions, and the more open immigration policies authorized in the 60s. Towards the end of the 70s, COINTELPRO was known to be highly successful as Klansmen started accusing one another of being FBI informants. Though the KKK were known to be influential in almost every way, the most prominent influence the KKK had was on politics. Notably, the Supreme Court Justice Hugo Black, prior to becoming a senator, he had left the KKK. Even so, he admitted that without the support of the KKK, he would not have become a senator. Another example was in 1924 where they had successfully lobbied for an immigration quota law. This was because 16 Klansmen were elected to the U.S. Senate. They even held governor's office in a few states and controlled mayor's offices. Many of these governors would consult other Klansmen before making any state business decisions.
In terms of voting patterns, studies have shown that the Klan had a lasting influence in terms of racial attitudes and behavior. In 1992, many decades after the Klan's decline, conservative racial attitudes persist in Southerners' Republican voting. However, this only applies in counties where Klan was organized back in the 60s. Socially, the racist agendas of the KKK can still be felt throughout the southern states in counties where they had more influence.
To summarize, The KKK had 3 developments. Throughout all 3 developments, there was a common goal to wipe out the black population, though they varied vastly in terms of their focused goals. The first being wiping out black people, as mentioned before. The second, hate against Jews and Catholics. The third, again, prejudice against the blacks. Today, however, the Klan focuses on illegal immigration, urban crime, civil unions, and same-sex marriage. The number of Klansmen has since declined steadily and has been mainly attributed to the Klan's history of violence. Efforts of the government to dissolve the KKK were fairly weak. The Klan also left a trace of influence in politics, which can be seen through the voting patterns of the different counties in US. In conclusion, the establishment of KKK and both its revivals influenced America in many aspects due to a series of traumatic events led by the KKK. Although these events have become history as we speak, without a doubt, it also left a mark on the American society today, whether as a community or an individual.